There's really nothing else like this week's story. It's one of the most dense, unique, hilarious, memorable, imaginative, beautiful, ugly, disgusting, raw, battle adventure manga ever made. Period. It's the climax of the age of magic users, relentlessly and lovingly crafted in a deep, thick sludge of raw talent. This week, it's Q Hayashida's Dorohedoro.
We're in the kitchen this week. Why are we in the kitchen? Because this week we're talking about Dorohedoro, and we're making Gyoza. Is it Gyoza? Because we're making Gyoza this week. If you're new to this channel or new to this video, welcome to Manga Mondays, the bi-weekly show I recommend you great or interesting manga. This is part 2 in our manga marathon on Q Hayashida. Last week we talked about all of her one-shots, and next week we're talking about her new manga, Dai Dark. This week we're talking about Dorohedoro. Gyoza are very crucial to the plot of Dorohedoro. If you've read or watched it, you may know why. And so I thought it appropriate, while we're in this last bastion of my move out and I have no office, to film this in the kitchen. Anyways, let's get on with the video. First I'm going to be making the dough. I'm going to need like 2 cups of flour, pinch of salt, and half a cup or like 4 ounces of water. Hot, like just below boiling. Then we're going to knead this for like 7 minutes. So Dorohedoro began in 2000, moving from Ikki magazine to Hibana to the Shonen Gessan, where it finally finished in 2018. An almost 20-year run. It's been published in English since like 2009. I've been aware of this one forever. Once you've seen the art style or Kaiman's face, it's really hard to forget. But now that I'm finally caught up, this took me the longest to read of any manga of its size, by far. It's hard to believe I started seriously reading this manga almost like 4 years ago. I took my time with it over the years and came back to it a few times, and I felt like I was rewarded for that. There's an endless amount of art to appreciate, and taking your time really does a lot to hammer in the details. The story does eventually open up and answer all your questions, but it takes some time to get there. It takes time to pierce the veil and become a fan of this whole series. For one, it's visually dense and just sometimes plain hard to make out. The comparison that comes to mind is Jonathan Vasquez's original Johnny Homicidal Maniac comics. Similarly violent, in Johnny the borders and in-betweens are lined with extra blurbs and drawings to make the page feel as ink-heavy and chaotic as possible. Early Dorohedoro, like Johnny, also has these thin, sharp, tall, angry, industrial goth character designs before its later style. It feels clean, intentional, doesn't quite get as cluttered until later on. Later Dorohedoro is more visually reminiscent of Q's short series Mach and X we covered last time, where it's not afraid to flood every corner of the page with details and leave you guessing. It's abandoning its attempts to keep things clean in favor of a heavy, claustrophobic atmosphere. This art style will take some getting used to, but it goes a long way in making every corridor feel as lived in and run down as physically possible. Oh hey, our dough's done. I'm gonna make snakes, wrap them up, then toss that in the fridge for 20 minutes to let it rest. Let's prep some veggies. I'm gonna go with onions, green pepper, and garlic. Then throw some veggie meat in there. If you eat meat, I don't know, this kind of looks like ground beef. I think it's supposed to be that, so use that. We're going to cook them in oil, soy sauce, and a little bit of ginger until everything softens up together. So Dorohedoro is this thick fog of ink and lines that doesn't quite come together visually, but it goes beyond the art. The world of Dorohedoro with its magic users and humans is super complicated. It's established already through years of culture and conflict, and we learn more about that as time goes on. The story of this world has already started. You have to peer through the peepholes and make out what you can, the best you can, from how these characters are already living their lives. For a long time it reads this way and does not hold your hand. There are a bunch of rules you'll pick up as you read, and once you understand the basics, you more or less have a grasp of the world and what's going on. Early on, a lot is introduced that may never come up again. You're thrown pointed, esoteric ideas like a mushroom computer that has data on all magic users, or rituals with no payoff like this magic urn you drop eggs into and pray for the resurrection of your friends. Sometimes it seems like Q has a really specific idea or a way she'd like to direct the scene, and that takes precedent over figuring out all the other details. Like the introduction of En's cleaners Noi and Shin in Chapter 4. It's terrifying and does a super effective job of conveying tone. I mean, I'm scared of Shin and his blood-red eyes in this introduction, but it doesn't really tell you how the cleaners' magic works or their methods. You just know what you know and you need to infer the rest. I mean, it looks cool, but when Q draws a scene like this, I'm not really sure if that's intentional because she wants to conceal a secret, or if Q's just making the scenes as fun as possible and figuring the rest out later. How much of what she does is actually planned and how much is rolling with the punches? And does it even matter? That's kind of the magic of Dorohedoro. Q introduces a ton of characters, abilities, world rules, on top of each other forever and ever until the end, and then it all just kind of funnels and works out. It's enjoyable no matter what happens because it looks cool and the characters are rolling with the punches too. Exploring new worlds, playing baseball, or having cook-offs. It's goofy. To use Jonathan Vasquez as an example again, it's goofy in a kind of Invader Zim way, like fun, dark humor from that 2010 to early 2000s era. Everything in the world is dark and tragic and futuristic and apocalyptic, but the people are having a pretty good time. Okay, our dough should be ready now. Let's take out the filling off the heat and roll out these snakes and cut them up into even little squares. Put some flour down and squash them, roll them out as thin as physically possible and set them aside. This is gonna take a while. Now that I'm done reading back and knowing how the world works, it's a lot less cryptic. You know what to absorb and what to ignore. You get reintroduced to characters you know with very intentional, dramatic moments. I would almost say it's better on a reread just because for me personally it was really hard to understand the first time through. This way I can kind of zoom through and check out the moments I like the most. But I love this complexity. It's a very personal thing, reading through a manga over and over before it's widely talked about and having to come to your own conclusions and think about it. Especially one as well realized and complex as Dorohedoro. It's like you get out what you put into it. You spend time with it and there's a lot to discover. I don't know if the Netflix show is more digestible, but from what I've read online, it's resonated with people in much the same way, which I totally believe. At a very basic level, there's so much wholly unique about Dorohedoro. The smoke-based magic system and its magicians have their own history, abilities, and biology. The door to their world isn't just a door to some evil place. Everyone on both sides live full lives. The characters are jaded enough to live in this world, but some of the most likable cast members still of any seinen or shonen manga I've read. There are a few core groups that we follow, a couple in the city of Hole where normal humans live, a couple in the magic user world, but we start with just two. We have Kaiman, the lizard-faced man who kills magic users on sight. He has a big smile and loves Gyoza. His personal storyline stretches over multiple bodies, timelines, and alternate dimensional curses. And we've also got Nikaido, the kick-ass skateboarding Gyoza shop owner who I can't even talk about without spoiling a lot of plot, but she's cool. Together these two are trying to find the person who turned Kaiman's head into a lizard. They start by just killing the magic users who come to the hole to use humans as target practice before taking their journey into the world where magic users come from and beyond. Together they become notorious along the way, and as the two meet more people, the story branches out into a rainbow of cast members from every corner of the world. Magic doctors who can change their age, giant sentient cockroaches who work with them, brain-dead scene girls, and actual devils. Eventually we have like 20 main characters who all have their own past, futures, and ambitions. It's nuts. One of the biggest casts I've ever seen that all feel important. Okay, we're finally done with all these wrappers. Now to wrap them up. I tried a few methods with and without the egg wash. I think just some egg to seal them after you folded them without the egg works best. I'm going to heat up a little bit of oil now. Cook these until the bottoms are golden brown. Then pour a little water in the pan and cover and steam them for a couple of minutes. And ba-bam! We have delicious gyoza. Before I go to eat my meal here, one more thing about Dorohedoro. I think the best part of reading this story is just figuring out the world. It would be easy for me to explain everything now having just read it again, but you're supposed to piece it together yourself, and I wouldn't take that away from anyone. If this interests you at all, go read Dorohedoro. It's one in a million. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time to talk about Dai Dark. Peace.
てめえは二階堂のこと全然分かってねえな。クソはまあ当たるまで投げてやるぜ。わしは取るぞ。